The Bridge Home by Padma Venkatraman. Chapter 1. Togetherness. Talking to you is always easy, Ruku, but writing's hard. Write her a letter, Selena Auntie said, laying a sheet of paper on the desk. Paper remade from wilted, dirty, hopeless litter that had been rescued, scrubbed clean, and reshaped. Even the pencil she gave me was made from scraps. You really like saving things, don't you? I said. Crinkly lines softened her stern face. I don't like giving up, she said. She rested her dark hand, warm and heavy, on my shoulder. Why should I write? I said. It's not like I have her address. I believe your words will reach her, Selena Auntie said. We're opposites, I said. You believe in everything and everybody. You're full of faith. Yes, she said. You're full too. You're full of feelings you won't share and thoughts you won't voice. She's right about that. I don't talk to anyone here more than I have to. The only person I want to talk to is Ruku. Maybe writing to you is the next best thing. If you could read my words, what would you want me to tell you? I suppose you'd like to hear the fairy tale you'd make me tell you every night we huddled together on the ruined bridge. The story that began with, once upon a time, two sisters ruled a magical land, and ended with Fiji and Ruku always together. That story was made up, of course. Not that you'd care whether it was true or not. For you, things were real that the rest of us couldn't see or hear. When I finished the story, you'd say, Fiji and Ruku together? Always. I was confident. Our togetherness was one of the few things I had faith in. Chapter 2. Rotten Fruit. You always felt like a younger sister, Ruku. You looked younger, too, with your wide eyes and snub nose. You spoke haltingly, and you hunched your shoulders, which made you seem smaller than me, though you were born a year before. Born when our father was a nice man, I suppose, because Amma said he was nice before. Imagining Appa before took a lot of imagining. I was a good imaginer, but even so, I couldn't imagine him all the way nice. The best thing I could do was think of him as not yet all the way rotten fruit, a plump yellow mango with just a few ugly bruises. I could imagine our mother picking him out, the way she'd pick fruit at the grocer's stall, choosing the overripe fruit he was happy to give her for free. I could see Amma looking at Appa over, hoping that if certain foul bits could be cut away, then sweetness, pure sweetness, would be left behind. Because Amma did choose him, their marriage wasn't arranged. Somehow he charmed her away from her family, with whom she lost all touch. They were ashamed, she told me, ashamed and angry with her for eloping with someone from an even lower caste than the one she'd been born into. It was all she ever said about her family, not their names or where they lived or how many brothers and sisters she had, only that they wanted nothing to do with us. And Appa's family, if he had one, didn't seem to know we existed either. Sometimes I wonder if they might have helped us if they had known. But maybe they'd done nothing or acted like our neighbors or schoolmates who did worse than nothing, who snickered or made rude comments when we'd walk past, comments that upset you so much you stooped lower than usual, so low it looked like you wanted to hide your head inside your chest. On my 11th birthday, when we came home from school, I was surprised to see saucepans full of food simmering on the stove. Amma, you cooked! I loved evenings when Amma felt strong enough to prepare dinner for us instead of the other way around. You even made patsiasam, and I inhaled the sweet scent of milk rice that wafted through our apartment. Not just that, Amma dug out a small money pouch from its hiding place underneath the rice sack. Here's 200 rupees for you to buy something for yourself. 200 rupees? I was so astonished that I almost dropped the pouch before securing it to my ankle-length skirt. I've been saving a little of what Apa gives me for food and rent. I wanted to buy something, but I was too tired to go shopping for a gift, and I wasn't sure what you'd like. This is the best gift, Ama. Thanks. Sweet, you said. Sweets for Ruku? Proper food first, Ama said. For you both. Ama heaped rice onto our plates and ladled some hot, spicy rasam over the top. She started eating, but you just stared at the food, your hands crossed over your chest. Come on, Ruku. I tried to feed you a spoonful of rice and rasam. No, you yelled. Sweet, sweet. Don't get angry, Ruku. Please eat, and I'll tell you a story tonight. Story? You calmed down. Ama looked at me gratefully. We just finished our dinner when we heard Apa's heavy footsteps. The sound of him staggering up the stairs to our apartment told us all we needed to know. Get to your room quick, Ama said. Sweet, you moaned. But your hand met mine, and we crept into our bedroom. In the darkness, we huddled together, unable to block out the sound of Apa yelling at Ama. We rocked back and forth, taking comfort in each other's warmth. Apa broke Ama's arm that night before storming out of the house. I need to see a doctor, Ama came in and told us. Her voice was tight with pain. Stay with Ruku. If they see her. She didn't finish her sentence. She didn't need to. She told me 1,000,000 times how scared she was, that if you set foot in a hospital, the doctors might lock you away in a mental institution. You curled up on our mattress with your wooden doll, My Apache. I smoothed your brow. The patch of moonlight that slipped past the rusty iron bars on our window fell on the book that our teacher, Pabarathi, had given me before she moved away. No other teacher had ever been so nice. Even though I was often at the top of the class, I opened the book. In a shaking voice, I read you a tale about a poor, low-caste girl who'd refused to accept the life others thought she should lead. You didn't think we could change our lives like that girl did, I asked. And Parvati, teacher, and Subbu, or at least our family, they all left for a better life in a big city. Subbu had been the only friend we'd had in school. His long face and thin frame had made him look as weak as a blade of grass, but he always told off the other children who teased us. I miss him, Ruku. Think he ever misses us? You answered me with a snore. I was glad you'd fallen asleep, but I stayed awake worrying and hoping. I hoped Ama would finally tell someone how she had been hurt and that they'd swoop down and rescue us. But I should have known she'd never tell. Chapter 3, Breaking. The next day, Ama pretended like nothing had happened. You never pretended. Ow! You announced. You patted our mother's good arm and stroked the sling on the broken one. When Apa came home that evening, his eyes bloodshot and his breath reeking as usual, he set packages wrapped in newspaper on the cracked kitchen counter. Presents for my girls. How nice! Ama's voice was full of false cheer. Sorry I lost my temper last night. He placed a finger on her chin. I'll never do that again. Promise. I saw hope creep into Ama's eyes. Desperate, useless hope. Suddenly I wanted to shout at her more than at him. Have you forgotten how often he's broken his promises? He ripped open one of the packages and dangled a pair of bangles in front of her. But before your fingers could close over them, he jerked them away. Catch! He launched one bangle over your head. And as you slowly raised your hands to try and catch it, he sent the other flying so fast, it struck you before tinkling to the floor. You squeaked like a trapped mouse. He laughed. How dare he think it was funny to trick you? How dare he mock your trust? When he tossed a package in my direction, I didn't even try to catch it. I crossed my arms and watched it land on the floor. How bad both our girls are at catching. Amal's voice was high-pitched and tense as a taut string. Stupid, he said, with one slow hand and the other with a slow brain. We're not stupid. I picked up my package and flung it at him, nostrils flaring. He slapped me. Please, Amal begged, not the children. You leaped and thrust your doll between me and a paw. He kicked out at you. At you. Furious, I lunged at him. You joined in, and the two of us barreled into him together. He swayed and fell backward, but not before he struck your face. Amal caught him, instead of letting him crack his head on the floor. Let them be, she pleaded. Ugh, Paul grunted. I was sure he'd come at us again, but instead, he crawled into their bedroom and passed out for the night. You ran a finger around the edges of what felt like a painful bruise blooming on my cheek. Ow, you said, paying no attention to your own wound. Poor Vici. With her unbroken arm, Amal grabbed a towel. She dipped it in cool water in our earthen pot and pressed it against your bleeding lip. You struggled until I promised it would help you heal. Leave, Pa, I told Amal. Let's go somewhere else. How would we live, Vici? We'll find a way. We can't manage without him. No one employs uneducated women with no skills. Her voice was flat, defeated. Just don't talk back anymore, Vici. I couldn't stand it if he hurt you again. He hurts you all the time, I said. And now that he started on us, nothing's going to stop him. She didn't argue. Her head drooped. And when she finally found the strength to lift her eyes to mine, I could see she knew what I said was true. I can't bear seeing you hurt, but how can I stop him? She gazed at the picture of the gods and goddesses smiling down serenely from our kitchen wall, as if they'd suddenly leap into life and start helping. Please understand, Vici. She was begging me, the same pathetic way she begged a Pa. I promise to be a good wife, no matter what. I can't leave. But after what he'd done to you, I couldn't stay. As I gazed at Amal's trembling chin, I realized how different we were. Amal trusted that if she put up with things, she'd be rewarded with another, better life after she died. It made no sense to me why any God who made us suffer in this life would start caring for us in the next. If I wanted a better future, I needed to change the life we had now. The more I thought about our differences, the surer I felt that I could protect you better than she could. She hadn't tried to stop a Pa from beating us. All she had done was beg. I would never become like her. I promised myself I'd never beg anyone for anything. At the first light of dawn, when Amal and a Pa slept, I woke and changed into my best blouse and ankle-length pavati. As silently as I could, around my waist, I tied the drawstring purse with Amal's gift of money. Then I crammed a sheet, some towels, and a change of clothes for each of us into our school backpacks. I added a bar of soap, a comb, and a pink plastic jar of tooth powder to your bag. From the kitchen, I grabbed a bunch of bananas, your favorite fruit, to add to mine. Our bags were heavy, but I couldn't bear to leave behind the book from Parvati teacher. Carrying it along was like taking her blessing with us. I told myself I forced it into my bag. Then I woke you. Shut up. Don't say a word, Ruku, please. Just get changed. We're leaving. Sleep weighed down on your eyelids, but you did as I asked. Perhaps it felt like a dream to you. As we shuffled toward the front door, you cast a bewildered glance at our parents' bedroom. Mama, you said. Memories of our rare happy moments gleamed in my mind like sunshine slipping into a dark room, the day Ama had helped you make a bead necklace, the night she'd sat by our beds and listened to the story I'd told you. For a moment I hesitated, but then I glanced at your cut lip, the proof Apa had given me that he'd keep hurting you as long as you were nearby. We had to leave right away before fear or doubt slowed me down. Chapter 4, Escape. You followed me unquestioningly until I turned down a different road away from our usual route to school. School? No, Ruku. We're going to a new place, a nicer place. Nicer place? Far from here, you and me. Ruku and Fiji together? You offered me your soft, trusting hand. With our fingers interlinked, I felt braver. I led the way to the main road where buses to and from the city roared through our village. In front of the bus stop sign, a woman was already waiting, chewing tobacco as placidly as a cow chewing its cud. A large basket filled with coconuts was beside her. Waiting for the bus to the city? My voice trembled as I checked to make sure we were in the right place. I'm on, she confirmed. Her eyes roved across my face, which was smarting with pain, and then settled on your cut lip, but she didn't comment. Soon enough, a bus arrived, raising a cloud of red dust that made you sneeze. The woman balanced the coconut basket on her head and climbed in. Come, Ruku. No, you dug in your heels. Ruku, come. I stepped into the bus. No, 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 you sang out. No. The driver honked to hurry us. I'll give you a sweet. I tugged at you. I'll give you a sweet when we're in the city. You wriggled free of my grip. Get in or get out, the driver yelled. I can't wait all morning. The bus started to pull away. I leaped out. You jumped in. Fiji! You leaned halfway out of the bus. Horrified, I raced behind it. I'd never have caught up to that bus if it hadn't been for the conductor's shrill whistle, calling the driver to stop. I climbed in, squishing down my sudden urge to haul you off the bus and run home. The conductor helped me lead you down the aisle. Sweet? You nestled into a seat, and I slid in beside you. Not yet. I tried to catch my breath. Don't have any sweets, Ruku. The conductor looked at me, and then at you, and stuck a hand in his pocket and pulled out a hard green sweet that had melted out of shape. Green was your favorite color. You gave him a lopsided grin. Thanks, I said. You're very kind, sir. No need for thanks. Going to the city? Yes, sir. He handed me our tickets. My hand was shaking as I opened the drawstring purse at my waist, partly because I was nervous, partly from shock at how high the fare was. The tickets used up most of my money. You unwrapped the sweet, popped it in your mouth, and stared at the green rice fields that flashed past the window. I wondered if you understood we were leaving forever. I was never sure what the words yesterday and tomorrow meant to you. Your sense of time was different from mine. My Apache, you rumbled in your bag, pulled out your wooden doll, and talked to her for a while. Then you stuck her back in your bag and slumped against my shoulder. The motion of the bus soon made your eyelids droop. While you slept, doubt slithered into my mind. Had I done the right thing? Where would we go once we reached the city? Would we survive? Chapter 5, Shards of Glass. You jerked away at the bus as the bus thudded to a halt. We're here, I said, trying to sound cheerful. The open-air bus terminal was packed with people shouting, laughing, and arguing. The smell of ripe guavas, piled high on a hand cart, pushed by a vendor, mixed with the smell of diesel smoke from buses. You held My Apache close to your chest and stroked her wooden head. As I wondered which way to go, I heard a voice right behind us. There you girls are. I whipped around. It was a bus driver. He'd crept so close behind that I could feel his hot, foul-smelling breath on my neck. You girls need a job? Money? I'll show you around the city. I didn't dare answer. What's her name? He jerked the thumb at you. For once, I was relieved he hadn't asked you directly. You weren't as suspicious of people as I was, and the last thing we needed was to strike up a conversation with him. I quickened our pace, but he kept up. Come with me. His hand came down on my arm and formed a vice. Let go, I shrugged. Let go. A few bystanders glanced our way, but no one tried to stop him. I tried to kick his shin and missed. Don't you dare, you filthy low-caste brat. He twisted my arm so hard I gasped. No, I heard you cry. No! Your arm swung back, and with all your might, you flung your hard wooden doll at him. My Apache hit his forehead with a satisfying thwack. He cursed. His grasp loosened enough for me to wrench free. We raced away deeper and deeper into the safety of the crowd. When I finally felt safe enough to risk a look back, the bus driver was lost to my sight. Still, I decided we were better off if we crossed the road outside the terminal, putting as much distance between us as possible. We waited for a break in the traffic and waited. I'd never seen such an endless flood of vehicles and pedestrians. Other people were darting in and out of the traffic, disregarding the deafening horns. Somehow, they weren't getting run over. Holding you close, I stepped into the gap between a three-wheeled rickshaw and a motorbike. The motorbike almost ran over my toes. No, no, no! You held my hand in a crushing grip. Move! Someone behind us snarled. I heard the unlikely tinkle of a cow's bell. A great white cow was fording through the river of traffic. Vehicles were parting to let it through. Good cow. You put your hand on the beast's side, as though you owned it. It didn't seem to mind. Protected by the cow's bulk, we managed to reach the other side of the street. Good cow. You ran your hand along its neck. Yes, it's a good cow. But that bus driver was bad, Ruku. We've got to keep moving. We came to a slightly less busy side of the street. On either side, there were rundown buildings that reminded me of our apartment. Towels, underwear, and faded saris flapped on clotheslines hung across the balconies. Turning the corner, we found ourselves on an even narrower street, lined with shacks selling food. In one of them, a man stood behind a rickety counter. You watched, fascinated, as he poured streaming tea from one glass tumbler into another, until a layer of froth bubbled across the rim. We deserve a treat, I said. How about sweet, milky tea instead of the sweet I promised you? Tea, you agreed. I was worried about how little money we had left, so I ordered us one to share. As it warmed my hands and the bubbles of froth tickled my lips, I knew it was worth the price. I sipped slowly, then held it out to you. Careful, Ruku, it's hot. But before you could wrap your fingers around the slippery glass, I accidentally let go. You squealed, "Ow!" Horrified, I watched the glass shatter on the ground, splattering tea across the hems of our skirts. Pretty. You reached down for a sparkly shard of glass. Don't touch! I grabbed your hands. It's sharp, Ruku. It'll give you an awa. Awa, you echoed sulkily. The tea shop owner scowled at us. Do you know how much that glass cost? He asked. Not that much, I was sure, but just before I opened my mouth to apologize, an idea struck me. Sir, I offered, we'll work to pay for that broken glass. Okay. Clean up the mess. The tea shop owner stuck his hands on his hips. Then go to the kitchen and help my wife. Yes, sir, I said. Fiji, you sounded uncertain. Everything's fine, Ruku. I gave you a quick hug. We found our first job. Chapter 6, Tea Shop. The smell of roasting chilies tickled my nose as we ducked through the narrow doorway to the tiny kitchen at the back of the tea shop. A woman in a wrinkled gray sari turned away from the stove and looked at us. Her body was all sharp angles, but there was a softness in her eyes. We broke a glass, I explained. We're working to pay it off. The woman mopped her sweaty face with the free end of her sari. You'll want help wash up? She asked instead of ordering. Yes, ma'am. Call me auntie, she invited with a quick smile. Not rich enough to be called ma'am. She motioned at a stack of dirty glasses and plates. I set our bags down beneath a shelf. on which I saw a plastic image of Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth, seated on a pink lotus. Though it was clear that the goddess hadn't yet showered the tea shop couple with riches, she was well looked after. A fresh jasmine garland was tucked around the picture, and a lighted incense stick was placed beneath it. Next to the goddess was a picture of a young girl who had Auntie's eyes, whose photograph was also decorated with a jasmine garland. I walked to the kitchen sink, but Tea Shop Auntie said, "No running water this time of day. Use pail." Below the sink, I saw a green plastic bucket filled with water. There was a bit of coconut husk that I could use to scrape the dishes clean, and a tin of powdered soap. "Don't use too much," she said, "or he'll be shouting at us." I liked that she said us, though she didn't even know my name yet. "And we only have one more bucket of water. No more running water until 4 a.m. tomorrow." "I thought in the city people could get water from the tap whenever they wanted," I said. "The city is the worst place," she said, "but my husband wants to live here. So what can I do?" She jerked her chin at you. "Your sister?" "Yes, I'm Viji, and this is my sister Ruku." Poor thing. She looked at you with pitying eyes, which I didn't like, but I kept my mouth shut. It could have been worse. She could have called you names, and then it'd have to start boiling inside like the oil in her frying pan. "You come from where?" I rinsed off a glass. "Ran away?" she asked. "Yes." There was no point in trying to hide it. Our story was clearly written on my swollen face and your cut lip, but I didn't want to tell her the details and risk her feeling even sorrier for us. Smoke billowed from the hot oil, and Tea Shop Auntie turned back to the stove. She rolled some vadai dough into a ball. Before she could do much more, you came over, pinched off another bit of dough, and rolled it in between your palms, just like she was doing. "You can do that quite well," Tea Shop Auntie sounded amazed. "Ruku's made vadais before." I tried not to let her surprise annoy me. Even the teachers at school, except for Parvati teacher, never bothered to find out much you could do. Amma didn't really know either. She's good with her hands, and she loves making bead necklaces. Ruku likes beads. You flattened a ball into a perfect circle, concentrating, and with the tip of your tongue between your lips. "Ruku is a good helper." "Ha, very nice," Tea Shop Auntie said. I returned to the dishes as you helped her with the dough. You started humming tunelessly as you worked. Homesickness pinched my heart for a moment. I thought of the rare weekends when Appa was away and Amma had enough energy to join us so we could cook a meal together. By the time I had done with the washing, my hands felt raw, but the dishes were clean, and the tea shop man grumpily agreed I'd done more than enough. "You'll be all right?" Tea Shop Auntie asked, keeping her voice low so that the tea shop man wouldn't hear. "We'll be fine," I said. Looking relieved, Tea Shop Auntie pressed 2 large bananas into your hands and a few vadais, hastily wrapped in a banana leaf, into mine. Then she led us out through the back door into a lonely alley littered with plastic bags and broken bottles. Chapter 7, Lost Puppy. Dusk was beginning to fall as we wandered out into the narrow street. My courage fell too with every step. Fingering what was left of our money, I wondered how long it would last us. I regretted being too proud to share our story with Tea Shop Auntie. I should have asked her for help finding a safe place to stay. "Find My Apache," you demanded. "She's gone," I said. "You threw her at the bad man, remember?" "My Apache," you repeated louder. "You saved me, Ruku. You were a hero." "My Apache," you yelled. "We have better things to worry about than your doll," I burst out. "Amma," you turned back to me. "Amma." "She's not here either. We just have each other now." You plopped down right there on the dusty street. "Fine, sit." "Ruku wants Amma. Ruku wants my Apache." "Shouting's not going to bring them here." You scowled at me, and I spun on my heel and strode away, hoping you'd follow, but you didn't. I waited at the end of the street for you a while, but you seemed quite content to stay where you were. You won that round. When I came back for you, you were bending over a skinny puppy with huge dark eyes. "Get away from that puppy, Ruku. It might bite." At the sound of my voice, the puppy thumped its tail. You stroked it tenderly with just one finger. Come on, please, I said. You started humming to the puppy. It licked you with its pink tongue. I'm really sorry, Ruku. You made no move to show me you'd heard, though you usually forgave me if I sounded apologetic. I crouched beside you. The puppy looked right at me, and his nose crinkled like he was smiling. I couldn't help petting him. His coat was smooth. He wriggled and sniffed my hand. Ruku's dog, I sighed. We don't have enough to eat or a proper place to sleep yet, and you want to adopt this orphan? Cootie, you announced, tapping his head. Cootie. Cootie? That's what you're calling him? I knew there was no point in trying to get you to leave the puppy behind, and I didn't want to leave Cootie behind either, because he'd smiled at me, and because he made you so happy. Your eyes were shiny as the puppy's wet nose. Okay, I said, but now we need to find a place to sleep. Come, you stood and beckoned to the puppy. Come, Cootie. Cootie pricked up his ears and stood attentively at your side, like he understood you perfectly. I have no idea where to go, I admitted. You choose. You broke into the widest grin I'd ever seen and started marching down the street, realizing with a twinge of guilt that I'd never let you lead before I followed. On one street corner, 3 boys had already settled in for the night, huddled together on a tattered straw mat behind a dumpster. We saw another group of kids still at work trying to sell newspapers to people who were stopped in their cars at a traffic light. It felt good to have Cootie trotting close to our heels along the dark streets. He was probably too small to scare away strangers, but surely he'd bark in warning if someone tried to sneak up on us when we went to sleep. If we ever found a place to sleep. We walked beneath a huge billboard with a larger-than-life picture of a woman decked in gold jewelry, not just bangles and necklaces and earrings and nose rings, but even golden hair clips. Pretty, you said, pausing beneath it. Pretty? Gold at super low prices at Fangman House, the billboard proclaimed, though the price for the necklace as advertised was a number followed by more zeros than I could even care to count. What comes after 10,000 ruku? 11, you said promptly. 10, 11. Right, I smiled. After 10 is 11, and we'll never have tens of thousands of rupees, so who cares what comes next? We wandered into a wider road that led to a river. 2 bridges spanned it. One was well lit with traffic rumbling across it, and the other was dark and deserted. We headed to the deserted bridge. Concrete lines stood on either side of what must have once been a grand entrance, and a crumbling concrete wall ran along its sides. The perfect spot to stay overnight, I decided. Probably the most secluded spot we could get in this city. Careful, I warned, as we picked our way around the holes in the ruined bridge. Pretty, you pointed at the river that glittered like crushed glass far below us. Halfway across the bridge, I saw a makeshift shelter. Someone had made a tent with a tarpaulin. Rocks held one edge of the tarpaulin in place along the wall of the bridge. The tent sloped down to the ground, where its other edge was held down with an old car tire. A cleverly built home with one wall, a sloping roof, and 2 entrances. Looks like it was abandoned ages ago, I said. Want to stay here? Ruku wants to eat. You gobbled the bananas and Cootie, and I finished off the dice. Our food was gone before I realized I should have saved something for the next day. It was beginning to get dark, but I could make out a boy marching up the bridge. He reminded me of a sunflower. Matted hair that looked like it had never met a comb stuck out like petals around a face that seemed much too large for his skinny body. He wore an oversized yellow t-shirt and a raggedy pair of shorts and held a bag and a wooden stick. Vanakkam, I greeted him, relieved that he was smaller than us. Go away, he said, instead of echoing Vanakkam in return. You're polite, aren't you? I said. If you stay here, my boss will come and he punched at the air. Tashum. He'll show you. Tashum. You imitated him, repeating his nonsense word. Tashum. He smiled at you. Then he turned to me and said in a tone he seemed to think was impressive, my boss will be coming with the rest of our gang. Your gang? I peered into the gloom. No one else as far as I could see. 20 boys, all 10 times taller than me. You're a bad liar, I said. Ow! You pointed at a scab on his knee. Don't worry, he said to you. And he sat down cross-legged, pulling his t-shirt over his scraggy knees. It doesn't hurt anymore. Kuti sniffed at the boy and licked him. My name's Muthu, he said. What's your dog called? Muku's dog, you said with pride. You sat next to Muthu, as he'd invited us to visit Kuti. He patted Kuti tentatively. Then he glanced behind us. Look, that's my boss.